Okay, go.
So I was saying like it's not a huge patch, so I don't think there's gonna be a huge like meta of people or whatever. Um, Binary Star being removed makes Cyber slightly worse because
Yeah.
obviously that's like a really good Cyber galaxy. This one makes Bang Bros better, Cyber's better, and maybe like a Star Guardian better, but like tiers are kind of hard to come by, and if you like, it's already hard getting 2 tiers in Star Guardians, so getting a third one might be like a little rough.
Think
But
it's
Hmm.
yeah,
gonna
this
slam
you
the
can think of like
toolbar.
maybe Star Guardians if you
Yeah,
get
I changed the
like a good
overlay
tier
parameter.
start.
What do you think of Protector Spat Syndra?
I think Syndra needs a like kind of like 2 or 3 offensive items, and the
Oh wow.
best
Okay.
defensive items tend to be like GA. I think
Hmm.
if you get a Protector Spat, could you try it on anyone in that comp? I guess no. I guess like if you think about it, it's probably not that bad on Syndra.
Yeah. It seems okay. I'm not convinced it's necessarily best in slot. Feels kind of
Yeah,
redundant with Gunblade. I feel like you'd rather have Gunblade, but I guess it's okay for fitting for Protector. So, because she doesn't have that much of a health pool. So,
this thing makes it really good on Nico. So
mm.
before Nico could like people put Titans on Nico like anyway, but this actually makes it so it's pretty good. Like you're not super sad about it. Hannah Justice nerf. I think this was deserved. I think that item was just a little bit too good. But I don't think like this like changes anything. Like anyone who already liked Hodge will still enjoy Hodge, and anyone who doesn't will still continue to not build it.
From what I've been
Uh,
seeing, it feels like Hodge plus Titan Resolve is weaker on mech though. Like that combination is much weaker than it used to be.
yeah, just because they hit both items.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, like this is like a small nerf to Astro Snipers. I think they're still viable.
Yeah.
Okay, I think this is like another big change. Is actually like J4 getting his tanky stats lowered makes it so our early game he's not as enticing.
Hmm.
And generally you like J4 is not even playable until you have 2 protectors anyway. Like not a big deal. Not a big like these none of these are a big deal. I guess this is a little bit he does a little bit less damage, but I think with this galaxy, the new galaxy,
Hmm.
Bang Bros is still a really good option. Um, I'm curious to see if these do anything. I actually like think increasing her base stats is pretty good because it makes it so that her 2 star is like a lot tankier.
Hmm.
But otherwise, like I just have to see. I don't know if this was necessary. I don't know if Shaco was really that strong last patch. I saw like some Shaco players, but it
Yeah.
wasn't like a super common comp.
Agreed. For with Riven, what do you feel? Do you feel this puts her back into Riven Sork? I forgot what they changed with her. To nerf her into inviolability as the only carry or primary carry.
They hit
So
her like in 3 different ways. I'm pretty sure they nerfed her damage, her tank stats, and like her shield health.
got it.
And since her shield health and damage skills off Sork, that's what made it like such a big nerf.
Hmm.
So unless they give some of that back, it might actually still be pretty bad.
Got it.
But Riven's like pretty good in like Shredder and Shredder and what's it called, Bang Bros.
Hmm.
So like I think this just makes that like a little bit more reliable. Like overall, Bang Bros got nerfed, but with this, but like I think the comp is still really good. So.
Hmm.
This is actually a pretty big nerf. They're pretty much having like a really hard time finding like a sweet spot for Gangplank, so they're touching him like a bunch.
Hmm.
Because he's either completely like meta defining or completely useless and unplayable. This is a I don't think this like actually does too much to him. He's still gonna be pretty good, but it nerfs like his ability to farm items and space marines as much and to like one shot your entire team.
Hmm.
I actually think the Zerath buff is interesting, but I'm not 100% sure if this actually does anything. Because the thing is, if they increase his base damages, when he's scaled with Sork and Darkstar, the likelihood that he kills a unit and stuns everything around it is a lot higher.
Hmm. Yeah.
But
So it
yeah,
might make
like I,
Darkstar more interesting, but they made Shaco weaker, so it's kind of harder to get to Zereth. So maybe he's
exactly.
just good in like a Sork or something, a comp that's already better. Like,
Yeah, like 4 Sorks. If you
yeah.
have the Zerath, like for example in Treasure Trove, you can definitely look towards Zerath, but otherwise you won't have enough items. Because
Mhm.
ideally in Sork, by stage 5, so when you get like your full 12 items, you want 3 items Syndra, 3 item Nico.
Mhm.
So like, how do you? There's like, unless you're getting like really good late game carousel items and like I guess like Kane items, stage 6 carousel items and stuff like that. I don't understand, or I don't see how you'd be able to itemize your Zerath.
Mhm.
All right, on to the game though.
So yeah, my
So pretty much, the early games goes really well for you with
it took me
pretty
so long
much.
to get
I really like the Gunblade Slam because I think Gunblade's one of the best in slot on
Mhm.
Syndra. Like pretty much almost any AP item like Death Cap, Jewel Gauntlet, they're all pretty good. Gunblade's definitely up there. So you have a really good start. There's not much to say here because this almost ensures that you streak.
Good start. I could just play this.
There was like a small decision. I think taking.
Now is hitting my 2 stars.
Yeah. Okay. So pretty much on any other patch, I think Titans Resolve here would have actually been a mistake. But I think with the new Titans Resolve buff or change, I guess is a change, it makes it really good on Nico. So because you actually quickly get the 25 stacks, and she does use the damage pretty well too.
I feel like this is probably the best. I was probably a 4 sword there.
Okay. So stage 3 is what I wanted to talk about. You actually lost a decent bit of econ starting from this stage because you're indecisive with what you're wanting to play for like the early parts of stage 3. So here,
So that guy's actually.
I'm pretty sure you can sell like Jin and Kate to make econ, and then at 6 you just run 4 Sork, which is probably your strongest comp.
Yeah, for sure.
And also, and then you end up actually losing a decent bit of econ for that, because with 20 gold, it stacks up like really, or like it adds up really quickly. So yeah, you can sell, if you pick that up, you can sell Jin and Kate to make 30 here. And then making 30 here. Yeah, I don't want to scroll that far.
What do you guys think?
So the 30 would put you at 36 on the, here, and then you're using 16 to level, right?
Can't make VA.
Yeah.
It didn't end up mattering because you won the next round, but it'd be like a big thing if you didn't win the next round.
Well, how do you feel about a TR Titans Resolve Slam versus a Zrat Slam here?
I like the Titans Resolve only because like chain isn't very good in Sorks. So if you think about like that, like belt can be made into Morellos if you never find the thing, find the other belt to make Warmogs, or you could be where it could be Warmog, ZZ Raw, or Morellos. Is the 3 big belt items for Sork, and then whereas armor can be Shroud and GA, but GA is like not as useful since you already have like a pseudo defensive item in Gunblade. I think Bramble's pretty bad, I would say, especially if you look at the rest of the game. Most people in this lobby are playing Sorks, making Bramble a lot worse. If it was like a super heavy Cyber lobby, maybe that makes it better, but even then, like Nico beats Cyber so hard that like it's just a really rough matchup.
So you don't feel like GA is great on Nico, or you do, but you prefer it on Syndra, or how do you think about GA?
I think GA it's dependent on like infiltrators, but generally speaking, Nico ults like 2 times anyway with like no GA. Thing is, the sword also isn't very useful in this comp, and GA gets rid of like 2 items that are like kind of mediocre. So that's pretty good. But if you're deciding between Nico and Syndra, generally you probably want to think about 2 things. One being how many Syndras are in the game. So like a high amount of Syndras in the game means Syndra gets it, and a high amount of infiltrators also means Syndra gets it. Because otherwise like Syndra's a pretty safe unit. But like for example, against other Syndras, it's really useful because your Syndra will survive their burst.
Yeah.
And then also like you talked about it several times throughout this game, where like how Syndra interacts with one another.
Gunblade dip.
And
Fuck me.
Yeah.
So pretty much if you survive their Syndra, you'll steal their balls, and then like making the mirror matchup a lot easier.
And for Morellos, who would you end up putting a Morellos on if, let's say, you ended up on Morellos?
It's not horrible on Nico. It's not horrible on like Ari, but yeah, it's kind of like an expensive item to build because you kind of need the belts and the rods, which are 2 of the better items in Star Guardians. But yeah, generally probably on Nico I think. But Nico only if you can't find like better defensive options. Ari's kind of underrated in the comp. Ari's actually like a really good unit even going into the late game because she spams so hard with 6-star Guardian. It's not like the best unit, but like it's like a secondary carry. Then there's not too much to say. Like I think this is like it's a defensive item carousel. Belt is always good on this comp. I think you end up you either getting the Warmogs here or like really soon. Okay, yeah, so you got the Warmogs here. There was like a comp choice I want to talk about. Generally not too much on this stage.
I'll be on a 3. Can't math.
Okay, so consider running like okay, I think you valued Celestial a little bit high. So right now your only damage source, and you kind of have to think about this like pretty often when you run Celestial, is that Celestial is only like a 10 or 15%. I think it's 10% after the nerf. No, sorry, they nerfed it from 20 to 15, right? I don't know, whatever. Like Celestial got nerfed fairly recently, but pretty much the only damage on your team is the Syndra. Everybody else is just kind of tanking until Syndra kills the entire enemy team. And since your Syndra already has a gunblade, Celestial's like especially useless on her. So what you can consider doing with Star Guardians is sometimes running like 2 Syndra 2s or like 2 Syndra 1s is pretty good, because in the same way that you scale off the enemy Syndra, you also scale off your own Syndra.
Yeah.
So since you already have the Protector buff and it's a Xin 1, which is generally like not that good of a unit, you can consider running just 2 Syndras. And it's probably slightly stronger. Because Celestial's just not doing that much for you.
Yeah.
Ooh, what a nutty Nautilus ult.
So I
Like,
could have dropped a protector then, like drop a Xin, probably Xin, and play
Yeah, because
another damage unit.
Rakan's a great unit and Jarvan is your item holder for
Yeah.
Nico. So yeah, dropping the Xin here would be bad. And the same thing is true as if you like, you're thinking of like unit quality, right? Like Zin's probably one of the worst champs in the game, like bottom 5, right? So if you just think about like that, it's like you're putting in like a really, really weak unit to fit in Celestial, which in this game especially is really weak. Because your main carry, the one that's doing all the damage, already has like her own healing and will stay at full HP until the fight's over.
Helps everyone. Alright, we'll just go 8. Let's go 8.
It's not here, but there's a point where you have five Star Guardians, you find a Poppy, and then elect to keep your Xin Zhao in. It's kind of like the same idea.
Yeah. How important do you think it is to stay on 3 or 6 Star Guardian as opposed to 4 or 5? Because I know you split the mana. Sometimes I feel like I usually don't prioritize not splitting the mana. I'm usually just more focused on unit quality. But yeah, I was wondering if you have a view.
It's pretty much just the unit quality. So like if you have to keep a Zoe, if you have 4 Star Guardian and one of your units is a Zoe 1 or even like an RE1, like these weaker units, you generally don't want that. But like Soraka 1 is kind of fine. Like Soraka 1 is like a really good unit if she goes off.
Yeah.
And like early mid game she will go off. Late game obviously she just dies. But early mid game she's pretty reliably goes off, especially since your other Star Guardians are like spreading mana to her. So like kind of like that. Same with like Nico. You don't want a Nico 1 in, but if you have a Nico 2 in and it forces you to have 4 Star Guardians, that's not a big deal. But like when it gets to 5, it's like a little bit worse. Because here's the thing, right? Okay, so it splits like 15.
Yeah.
Between 3. So then 15 between 3 is 5 to each, which is good because 2 times 5 is 10, and that's like an auto breakpoint. Like it reduces the amount of autos by 1. Versus if it's 4, you need 3 or 5, and then it goes from like 12 is like 1 auto breakpoint, and then 5 would be 2 auto breakpoints. So like that's once again not that bad. But at 5, it goes down to 3 per Star Guardian, and that hits an auto breakpoint at 4 casts, which is like that's a lot of casts.
Yeah.
And then to get to like the 30 is like 10, which is like not even at all realistic. So it's like you got to think about like that. So 5 Star Guardians is quite bad. 4 is like good, like okay, and then 3 is like ideal, which is exactly how they chose to like balance Star Guardians. Is generally when you have the perfect amount, it splits well. But yeah, try not to go 5 because 5 might actively detriment like the important casts.
Yeah.
That's what I'm more gonna focus on rather than division.
Especially since like if you're running like a Zoe 1, Zoe 2, these like weaker units, it matters even more. And same with like Poppy.
4 sword. It's always straight 4. So
So there's I actually think you can run Victor here if you get a Victor 2. So you keep it, and right now you sell. Once again, maybe running it over the Zoe would be important here because you get to 5 Star Guardians, and so it's like the same concept as I just kind of said. 5 Star Guardians like splits your mana like really poorly, versus like 4 is not as bad. And I think it's like right now or like very very soon is when you'll find a Poppy, and you can just take out the Xin to run 6 Star Guardians. It's like yeah, your Star Guardians are fairly useless, like most of them, but like Xin is also just useless. So you'd rather hit the 6 Star Guardian breakpoint that like feeds a huge mana battery to your important units. There's not much to say. I think your item choices like were really clean this game.
Thanks.
You end up other than I think on your Janna you get like really weird items because I think it's a red cane. But other than that, like the items you make are really good, and the items like you end up with are you're really happy with. Like 3 good defensive items on Nico with like the best in slot with which is Warmogs. Shroud is almost always a good item, and then you get a JG here, which is like pretty good. So yeah, like you have more like it's not like completely perfect, but it's about as good as like you can really ask for.
So for the last team fight in the game, I'm pretty confused as to why I lost it.
Oh, okay, I can tell you. Yeah,
Okay,
I
yeah.
watched that team fight. Yeah, this almost pretty much you get as unlucky as possible, which is kind of sad. Okay, I think is this one it? No, it's a little bit further. I can tell you why you lost it. Pretty much your Syndra gets stolen. I don't understand. Oh, sorry, I don't know if you know like how it works when 2 Syndras cast at the same time. You can get your balls like stolen.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
And then pretty much your Syndra does a 3-ball cast 2 or 3 times, and you lose the fight off that.
I see.
I'll show you. Okay, I'll even slow it down. Oh, never mind. It's already on 1 times. Okay, so right here, 1 sec. So that's a good cast, and this is why you think like early on you're winning because you got like 2 to 3 good casts, and then right here that's a 3-ball cast. His Syndra stole your balls. Next cast, that's a 3-ball cast.
I see.
And then his Syndra blows up your entire team.
Yeah.
And like late into the round is when it's important. Like obviously, if you get a 3-ball cast early on, it's not a big deal because you can come back because it's a scaling thing. But your last 2 ults were 3-ball casts, whereas he just stole all your balls for the last 2 casts and blew up your entire team.
So
And that's the difference.
So, but obviously bad RNG. But how do I prevent that? Is it like, yeah, how
Like
do,
I
or
wouldn't.
not even prevent that, but how do I win this? Because I even had a unit over him, so I was really surprised that I lost. Is it like, yeah, and his items didn't seem better than mine either. Is there a
I'm
way to
pretty sure
do
it's
this? Yeah.
completely an RNG case.
Yeah.
And okay, so I think you mentioned this is before the sound cut out, and I heard. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you're like, should you just not shroud his team? And the answer to that is no. And the reason why is pretty much Star Guardians like live and die by like how early they get their cast. If you're playing any other comp, like this is not even something you would think about. So say you're playing Cybers, like if you shroud a Star Guardian player, like you actually have a chance. Like generally Cybers don't have a chance, but you actually have a chance if you shroud a Star Guardian player. And the reason why is because they snowball off of like their 1 cast. Because their 1 cast lead to like a bunch of casts because that's just how it works. So if you slow down that initial cast, it's like super important, especially on units like Janna and Soraka that have like these crazy high mana costs. Like Janna's in like 150. So 30% of 150 is like bigger than 30% of 60, obviously. So like that's really important to get your shroud off on like these really big mana pool targets. It's slightly less important on Syndra since she has a low mana pool, but like it's still important because Syndra scales off the number of cash you can get in a fight. And the reason why like shrouding someone in the mirror doesn't actually do anything, or sorry, is always useful, and like not shrouding them doesn't actually prevent anything is because you slow down their first cast, it makes their first cast stronger, but if you cast more than the enemy Syndra, the likelihood that you get RNG'd is lower. So even though like she scales off your cast, you also scale off their casts, right? Like okay, maybe I'm not explaining this the best way, but pretty much if you cast first and then they cast second, the second cast won't kill your Syndra if you have Mystic, and then your your second cast pretty much counts as a third cast, and you could kill their Syndra, and so forth.
As opposed to maybe them getting the 3rd cast.
Right, and also just like shrouding Janna and Soraka makes it so that like there's honestly a good chance that neither of them cast if you shroud them.
Yeah.
Because their mana pools are so big, and I guess this is for GP as well. The only counter to GP with GA to make sure that like to make it so that he kind of has a chance of not casting is like some sort of mana reave, like Shroud, Mana Reaver, Ezreal, I guess. And that's because he has like a 125 mana pool, so it's the same effect. Like if you're like 30%, 40% of 125 is like 4 extra autos or 3 extra autos. Whereas like 30% of 60 is like 2 extra autos, 1 extra auto.
Makes
so
sense.
that's like a big thing.
So you mentioned that the Janna itemization was a little weird.
I think you just get it all off Red Cane though, right? So it's like nothing.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah. Like you pretty much have no choice but to have those items. But like that's what I meant when I said like your items are like pretty much as good as it gets, and then Janna looks a little weird, but the only reason is because you got them off Red Game to begin with.
Yeah.
So it's not like you chose them.
Got it. And you feel like the Morellas on Rakan is fine?
Yeah, Morello's on Rakan, and because your Syndra, sorry, your Ari won't survive.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like better on Ari because Ari's more likely to spread it. But the thing is, your Ari doesn't survive
Because she's 1 star or in general?
because she's 1 star. Yeah,
Yeah.
like the risk that she dies like randomly to like stuff that you can't really control is higher versus Rakan generally gets 1 ult.
Mm.
Ari generally gets 1 too, but it's just like there's like a whole host of things that can happen that makes her so that she doesn't get an ult off. So I'd say with the 2-star Rakan versus 2-star Ari, I would choose Rakan. But with the 2-star Ari versus 1-star Rakan or 2-star Rakan, I would choose the 2-star Ari. And
So Ari always at equal star level. You want Ari to have Morello's, but
yeah, over Rakan.
yeah,
Right.
okay.
And I guess I'll show you, but there's I think it's like right here, or like 5-1 maybe. There was just a Poppy shop that, like we talked about this. Oh yeah, right here. There's like a Poppy shop, and replacing Xin Zhao with that is probably pretty good. Because like Xin Zhao, honestly, on stage 2, Xin Zhao's probably better than Rakan, because lower mana costs and less likelihood of clumps. So Rakan's really good against clumps. Early on, some people don't clump as much, so that makes it so Xin Zhao could actually be better. And also, lower mana cost means he scales the Protector a lot better. So, like, more cast means more HP. So, consider running Xin Zhao over Rakan on, like, early stage 2 and maybe, like, late stage. Like, up until stage 2-7, there's a chance that that Xin Zhao is better than Rakan. But past that, Rakan's always better.
Yeah, for sure.
And late game, like, Rakan's an actual unit, Xin Zhao's, like, half a unit.
I don't think I care about this shit.
So, yeah, consider just taking that out. And just with the Celestial thing, that's like true for all cases. Like obviously in this case, it's like a little bit more obvious with you having a Gunblade. But like for example, Jinx in Jinx comps, you also don't necessarily want Celestial because of Rebel buff being active for the first 8 seconds of the fight, and also, well, I guess that's the big one. It's just like Rebel buff being active, so Celestial doesn't even kick in until like the fight's over.
Yeah, because you can't heal through shield.
For Celestial,
Yeah, okay.
even more.
I guess like okay, so I was watching GV8, and I don't know when. This could have been like ages ago now, but pretty much the way he said is like you actually have to actively think about like what the synergy. So like sometimes when you're filling out your comp and you're like, okay, what can I put in here? You have to actually think about like because you're like completing synergies, right? It's like oh, if I have one info, I can put in a second info, but you got to think about like exactly what that synergy is doing. So if you're using like let's just use infiltrators for example. It's like you have one info and it's like a I don't know, like a Nocturne 2. If you put in a second info, yes, you create a synergy, but like what does that synergy give you? And it's giving you attack speed on your Nocturne 2, which is generally like other than in stage 2 is a pretty bad unit. So maybe if it was like a Z2 or even like a Fizz 1, like faster ultis on your Fizz, or like an Echo 1 with Cybers, like more attacks. Like this is when the infiltrator buff matters. But with like a Z1, maybe like a Nocturne 1 or 2, infiltrator buff doesn't matter. And the same is true for Celestial. The same is true for like sometimes Mana Reaver is like how many people can you realistically hit with your Mana Reaver by putting it in?
Yeah.
Like what healing are you realistically getting by putting in Celestial? Like Vanguards, like so you have like a Poppy 1 for whatever reason, and then you put in another Vanguards. Okay, what are you really getting from this Vanguards? Okay, your Poppy is getting tankier, and chances are you're putting in like a second Vanguard or a second level 1 Vanguard to fill in the synergy, right? So yeah, that's a big thing with these like splash synergies. The one exception is Chrono, because Chrono is just like super good, like as a splash synergy. But yeah, otherwise you really got to think about like what you're getting out of these splash synergies.
Yeah, for sure.
And could you play like a better unit instead?
Cool.
Yep.
All right. Dude, so insightful as usual. Thank you so much.
Oh, and I guess we could talk about the meta a bit.
Yeah.
I'm not super comfortable giving like a huge like meta kind of like, or I'm not super comfortable having like a solid stance on the meta, but it looks to me like not too much has changed. So most of the comps last patch are still going to be at the very least viable. Like they might not be like, so like Astro Snipers might not be like high tier anymore, but they're still like absolutely playable. And if you get a good start for them, you should absolutely look towards like going that route. But
Yeah.
I'm willing to drop down.
I think Mech is like the only comp that got like nerfed like somewhat significantly, but I think Mech was so good last patch that they're still going to be more than fine this patch.
Boy, there's a
Yeah.
lot of Zephyrs in this
Feels like
game.
Sork,
Which is, like,
Star Guardian might be
Everyone is
the
playing this
best.
game.
If anything's like slightly better than the rest, just because it's so good into Cybers already. Even though Cybers still solid.
The fuck should
It doesn't really feel like there are any real info comps right now. That would be good into it. But yeah, what's your take?
I think Star Guardian Sork can definitely be good.
Yeah.
I think the comp run or like relies on a lot of like key items. So for example, you didn't get Spark this game. Like Spark is a really good item in this comp.
Yeah.
That's like probably top 3 best items after like Blue Buff and maybe like Warmonks.
Holy shit, I shat on that.
Like granted, you on a win streak game, so it's like the likelihood that you
Wait a second.
like can prioritize items like Spark is like a little bit lower, especially since other people are probably gonna look for it in this lobby. I actually don't think that many people had Spark this game, but generally speaking, Spark is like a really good item you should look for in this comp.
Seems like Nico
And it goes on
is
Nico.
even more important than Messenger.
Got it.
Other than that, I don't think there's any.
And he
There's
needs
too
to
much.
go.
Okay. Uzi, stop. How do you feel about Jinx right now?
I don't think it's that important that she goes.
I think she's still fine. I think last patch she was good. Like I don't think she was crazy good last patch,
This
but
guy for, Lincoln.
I still think she's good. It's just the GP nerfs actually hurt the comp because it wasn't too much of a Jinx comp as much as it was like a GP comp. So I want to see like how the GP nerfs actually like matter. But
Like, I don't know if a
other than that, I don't think Jinx is bad. Like
Got
if
it.
you get like a red buff start, and since blasters are like the only comp that really use red buff, and I guess like a little bit of cybers since you can put on echo, like you can still go Jinx.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Cool, man. That's all I got.
So
Yep.
is